One of my favorite gaming genres happens to be role-playing games, specifically the turn-based kind. And generally, JRPGs tend to come to mind whenever it's discussed. Within this subgenre, you usually come across two ideologies: simplistic turn-based mechanics with basic elementary levels of customization, and numerous skill trees with tons of niches and customization with a much more steeper learning curve. Chances are you'll either be the sort who loves one side or the other. Maybe you like both, I don't know. The point is that the enjoyment of a JRPG, aside from its story and characters, can also hinge on its gameplay. One complaint that people tend to have is that the genre's core gameplay loop tends to be repetitive or uninteresting. And then, there's the ones where you take a casual, and this is what they'll see. Point is, plenty of JRPGs have often tried to implement ways to keep the gameplay fresh and exciting, whether it's taking advantage of elemental weaknesses or utilizing real-time combat. As a turn-based JRPG gacha, Star Rail's toughness mechanic is a take-it-or-leave-it kind of situation. And for plenty of players, that can be seen as a negative. These sorts of core mechanics are generally tied towards the overall gameplay loop, essential to the game itself. And when such a system can be mostly ignored, you start to wonder what the point is. It also doesn't help much when the gameplay, as of this patch, can be simplified towards just a small handful of styles. However, you could arguably say the same for games like Pokemon, where its type matchups can be ignored due to either specific strategies or Pokemon possessing the stats to break through anything. So there, type matchups are the difference between half or double effective damage. Now, despite all that, I actually enjoy break effects quite a bit. In fact, it's one of the few strategies I employ from time to time. In Honkai Star Rail, decreasing toughness requires that you strike an enemy with its corresponding elemental weakness. Once the bar is empty, you'll deal both burst damage and an effect based on said element. It's pretty important to understand that this weakness break is split into three separate effects: initial burst damage, DOT damage, and action delay. The initial burst damage can be ranked like this, with fire and physical at the top, and quantum and imaginary at the bottom. So does that mean you should neglect the bottom two? Not necessarily. But before we get into that, we need to talk about DOT, damage over time. If you look here, you'll see that wind and quantum are ranked the highest, with physical and imaginary at the bottom. For those that don't know, the entanglement status does more damage the more stacks it has. As such, the overall DOT would increase the higher your break effect. You've noticed that imaginary has been ranking pretty low on both sides. That's where action delay comes in. Only 3 element types have this effect alongside the other 2: imaginary, quantum, and ice, with imaginary the strongest and ice the weakest. As you play the game, you might have noticed that little number on the top left. Oh, right. There we go. This is your action value, arguably one of the most important statistics in the game. Lowest action values will go first, and it resets once the character or enemy performs their action. Every toughness break will cause a fixed 25% action delay. However, this is where the 3 elements will come in. Since Frozen has a fixed 50% delay, it's dead last. Imaginary has the greatest effect, as it also includes a 10% speed drop.
Business, eh?
There's always a weakness. Lend me your strength. No.
Pretty crazy, right? Well, not nearly as crazy as the amount of people that watch my videos who aren't subscribed. Yeah, there's no joke here.
Fun this time. Time for a buzz.
Pretty good crowd today.
Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's something you need to understand. Certain elements don't benefit nearly as much as say fire or wind. Breeze, for example, doesn't get that much of a boost from break effect. In fact, it receives some of the least amounts of benefits from high break percentages. It's usually better to just invest in crit rate and damage for your DPS builds. Having much more consistent damage is generally more optimal than relying on toughness break. Not to mention, most players are going to be free to play, so they won't always have access to key units for fast, consistent shield break. To make matters worse, this form of strategy may not be the best for clearing Chaos Memory, where you'll need 2 capable teams to 3-star within a set amount of turns. So why did I bother with this entire spiel? What's the point if there's generally far more efficient options? Easy. I find it fun. That's it. Now let me tell you something. You see that little bar indicating the toughness will break? Ever since 1.1, it's looking a lot more cracked. Do you know the amount of dopamine being produced by my brain? It's a lot. A metric ton. That cracking sound, the amount of damage displayed, and the turn count. Those small moments are what I live for. And if you're already familiar with me so far, you'll know I love me some nihility. My simulated universe runs are proof enough of that already. If you remember, Break Effects also include its own DOT, and those are separate from character-inflected DOT. Characters like Sampo definitely work with this strat. Star Rail is a game full of grinding, whether it's traces, relics, and dailies. Focusing so much on the specifics is how you burn out fast, and with the game with so much content to come, it'll be easy to eventually reach that point, especially because the game's only real energy system is Trailblaze power. And this is especially true with the steep requirements to ascend towards level 70 and beyond. For someone such as myself, enjoying the small things in life tends to lead to happiness. I know that's a rather subjective statement, but I believe that always going at your own pace is the best approach. Naturally, this is true for any gacha. So try not to worry too much about having the most optimal equipment, or being behind compared to your friends. Don't worry if your friend has Jingyuan and you don't, because your units will carry you if you put in the time and research. Work smarter, not harder. And that, my learned audience, is the true lesson of strength. Thanks for enjoying the video. If you enjoyed this form of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. I always come out with a new video every 2 weeks or so. Your support will go a long way towards this channel's future. I'm very much considering going with plenty of Star Rail content to come. If you're into that, then definitely stick around. Even if not, I've got much more entertainment heading your way. May your pools be blessed, and your fun kept intact.